China's #2 general He Weidong and 8 other high-ranking officials have been expelled from the ruling Communist Party on corruption charges. They're the most senior officers to be purged in an anti-graft push that began in 2023. General He was last seen in public in March, and his absence fueled speculation he was under investigation. The Defense Ministry said the 9 men are suspected of financial crimes involving, quote, an extremely large amount of money. Rorry Daniels is the managing director of the Asia Society Policy Institute and joins us now from Princeton in New Jersey. Do we know exactly, Rorry, what the generals are accused of?
No, we don't. And it's opaque by nature in the Communist Party system to not be clear on some of the details of what they call severe or extreme financial misconduct, misappropriation, et cetera. So we don't know many things about what is happening with these charges, including the exact nature of the crimes for which they're being indicted, the schedule on which these investigations are playing out, or what it means for their future in the Communist Party, though with a very upcoming important meeting of Communist Party officials this month, we can suspect that there will be further actions announced against these generals or others targeted in the corruption campaign.
What more can you tell us about He Weidong? He's not an insignificant figure, is he?
No, he's not an insignificant figure. In fact, he is the #2 in the Central Military Commission, which is the most important governing body of the Chinese military. So this is an incredibly significant indictment, and the person who is chosen to replace him will hold a lot of sway over how Xi Jinping exercises power in the military. So we're looking very closely at that to see what it signals about Xi Jinping's plans for further increasing Communist Party control over the military.
What do you make of the timing of this? We're just days away from a closely watched 4-day gathering of top officials in Beijing.
Yes, and I think the timing is very significant. It's an opportunity for Xi Jinping to appoint people into these positions that will further his agenda. This plenum is particularly important, this gathering of Communist Party leadership, because it is the last before the Chinese Communist Party and the state apparatus plan for and release their next 5-year plan, which governs a lot of the incentives and targets for the Chinese government to complete over the coming 5 years. So personnel appointments that are announced at this plenum should have a major effect on Chinese policy over the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, the fight against corruption was always central to Xi's mission. What does this tell us about how he is advancing this agenda?
It's very interesting. I think that the attention on resolving corruption in the military has been a top focus of Xi Jinping and his administration, not just in the last 2 years since 2023, but really throughout his tenure. It does show that there are areas where Xi Jinping believes that the Communist Party needs to further consolidate control. But at the same time, some of the people who have been involved in these purges are seen, at least by outsiders, as particularly close to Xi Jinping, or perhaps coming up the ranks at Xi Jinping's direction. So the question in my mind is, how much of these purges or the information that's being brought to light that leads to indictment and investigation are, a sign of political infighting within the top leadership of the Communist Party for the future direction of the party in the world. Certainly with Xi Jinping's personal imprimatur on the corruption campaign and his long-standing desire to create a Communist Party that is more accountable to the people, more streamlined and less corrupt, one could expect that no one, including people who perhaps Xi has identified as particularly important to his agenda, are exempt from the consequences of corruption. And yet it's so widespread that it might be very difficult for him to find good personnel appointments who understand the system, but are also clean enough to escape this type of scrutiny and charges. So I think this is a very complicated picture, but what the end result is every time is that Xi Jinping has the opportunity to exert more control over personnel appointments and therefore manage these political factions or perhaps manage the personnel to meet his goals over the long term, staying in complete control.
That's Rorry Daniels, Managing Director of the Asia Society Policy Institute. Thank you so much. Always great to have you on the program.
Of course, my pleasure.